Hey guys, it's Laura. Today's video is going to be my February wrap-up. So I ended up reading a total of 10 books in the month of February, and it was a little weird because at the beginning of the month, I was in a major reading slump. I just did not want to read at all. Like for the first week and a half maybe, I just had a really hard time with reading. I mentioned in my February TBR that I was planning to do a vlog. That vlog ended up not panning out, but we'll talk about that in a second. Let's start off with my one DNF for the month. And this is one that I am so super sad about, but I think that maybe we can blame it on my reading slump because this was one of the first books that I picked up in the month. And that is The Gilded Ones by Namina Forna. Yes, everyone who's read this that I've seen has loved it. And I just thought I was gonna love it too, but I didn't. I got 170 pages into it and decided to just give up. We're following Decca. Decca lives in a small village, and when girls are 16, I believe, they go through this blood ceremony that tests their blood for purity. So if their blood runs red, then they're fine. They can be a member of their village and be accepted. However, if their blood runs gold, that means that they're not accepted in their village and they face a fate worse than death. Decca, of course, goes through her blood ceremony and her blood runs gold. And then she is then taken away by this mysterious woman who says, you have the opportunity to stay here and die, or come with me and work for the emperor as one of his elite warriors. And so she does that. And this was just, I had a lot of trouble with the writing. I had a lot of trouble with the character as well, Decca. I didn't love her internal monologues. I loved the mythology and the world building and the culture so much. I thought it was so well done. And it had very interesting creatures and beings and things like that. But I just didn't like the over explanation. I felt like so much was over explained to us. And I know that this is a YA, but we really didn't need our handheld as much as it was in this book. For instance, there was, I forgot what it was, but there was like this thing that was mentioned several times. And the first time it was brought up, because it's an unfamiliar word that's used in this, and it describes what it is. Okay, great. The next time that's brought up, it's again described to us what it is. The next time, again. Do you know what I mean? Like, just, you don't need to over explain everything like that. I didn't like that. And I just thought the writing was very simplistic. I just wasn't enjoying it. I had just this general overall apathy towards the story itself and the writing and the characters. So I DNF'd it, and I'm so sad. I'm so sad because it was one of my most anticipated books of the year and I just couldn't get through it. Okay, so moving back into that failed vlog, I was planning to do a vlog much like Kayla from Books and Lala, where she reads BookTuber's favorite books of 2020. So that's what I was planning to do. I was going to read BookTuber's #1 favorite book of the year, but I just, because of my slump, I guess, I just wasn't in the mood for vlogging either. And so I didn't vlog, and I apologize. But I did start reading 2 of the books that I was planning to read for that vlog. The first one being We Ride Upon Sticks by Quan Berry. Now I picked this up because it's actually Kayla from Books and Lala's favorite book of 2020. And that was the only reason I picked it up. I didn't think that I was gonna like this. It was a whole thing. So in this, we are following a girls field hockey team. This takes place in the late 80s, so I enjoyed all the 80s references. I enjoyed the 80s music references as well. Like, I could have made a whole playlist around this book and it would have been awesome. But they are like losing. They're not doing very well in their team, and so they decide to make this deal or this pact with the darkness, I guess. And it's all very vague. Things end up starting to go really well for them, and then they realize that they have to keep feeding this darkness by acting on their impulses, and mostly they're bad. And I really liked the girl group dynamic. I loved the friendship. And the weird part of this book is that they end up becoming one entity. Like, they start referring to themselves as we, and they start sharing minds and being able to pick up on each other's thoughts. So there was a lot of weird and interesting and sometimes witchy things that happened in this book that I really loved. However, what really brought this down for me was the writing. There was good things about the writing. I loved the humor. It's so funny sometimes, but there was like this the word vomit, stream of consciousness, exposition that I just got lost in sometimes. It was just too much. It was just like, here are a bunch of words, you know, and I didn't like that. Am I even making sense? I don't know. But it was definitely an experience reading this book. Some of it very positive, some of it very negative. So I ended up giving this a 3 out of 5 stars. And then the next book I read that was supposed to be for that video was Upon a Burning Throne by Ashok K. Banker, which is actually Starla from Starla Reed's favorite book of 2020. I thought I was going to love this. It is an Indian-inspired epic adult fantasy. It takes place in the city of Hastanaga, which is the ruling city of the burnt empire. And basically what they do is to choose succession for the throne is that they set the children on this burning throne, and the fire consumes them. And if they survive that, then they are deemed worthy to rule. And if not, then they die. In fact, I really liked the first sentence of the book, which was, "They came to watch the children burn." There was a lot that I loved about this. Objectively, this is a 5-star book. This was epic. It is based on the Mahabharata, so it's definitely an epic story. The problem I had with it is that there was just so much going on. We follow so many different characters across a lot of different places, and a lot of the characters eventually do come together, and sometimes it does that thing where like you start following a couple characters and then you go and follow a different character and you have no idea how they connect until later on in the book after you followed other characters as well, which was interesting. We got a lot of backstory on all of the characters. I don't know what it was. I mean, I'm thinking that it was just because it was so much. There was so much going on. I feel like this one book, it's quite thick too. I feel like this one book could have been 2 or 3 books really. And because there was just so much packed in, I didn't enjoy it as much as I thought I would. Now, this is another book that I read while I was in that reading slump. It took me quite a while to read, so maybe that was it too. Maybe that affected the way I felt about it, but I ended up giving this a 3 out of 5 stars. I think it's a great book. I don't think that I'm going to continue on in the series, but I think that a lot of people will definitely like this, so don't take my not stellar review of it to not pick it up. I think that a lot of people will enjoy it. It's not necessarily difficult to read. It's just that there's so much that you have to keep in your mind. So many characters, so many events, so many gods that are working with mortals and in mortals' lives, messing things up or helping them. And I just liked the world so much, but it just didn't quite work out for me. You know, so 3 out of 5 stars. The next book I picked up was a historical fiction, which I always mention that I don't like historical fictions, but then I keep picking up historical fiction that I really like. So yeah, I picked up House of Rougeaux by Jenny Jekyll, and this was actually very kindly sent to me by the author herself, so thank you so much. I really enjoyed this book, and I got sent this in anticipation for a new book that's coming out that connects to this one called Boy Falling. When she told me about Boy Falling, I was super interested in it. It is another historical fiction that is kind of like a sequel companion to House of Rougeaux, but of course reading House of Rougeaux first was kind of necessary, so she sent me this one. So this book is this sweeping multi-generational family. It starts off with our main characters Abege and Adudni, who are sister and brother. Abege and her brother live on Martinique on this sugar plantation as slaves, and we follow her life and her brother's life and then their descendants throughout multiple generations. What's interesting about this historical fiction is that Abege actually has like this magical gift. So this has like a little touch of magic. She has the ability to call forth and interact with the spirits of plants, and she uses that to heal people. And I loved the touch of magic. I loved how throughout the generations we get to follow this family and see how individuals have different slight magical abilities and how that helps them out in their life. I really loved the care that the author took in writing such a ambitious story, but also a story that deals with such heavy topics such as as slavery and racism, wove it into something that was so heartfelt, heavy, but also something that was just so full of hope. And that's the feeling that you get leaving this book, just very hopeful. I thought that the writing was great. At times it was beautiful, and I just loved how we got to deep dive into certain characters. It explores things like gender and identity and race and even sexuality, and I thought it was just done so well, and I really enjoyed it. So if you're looking for a historical fiction with a little touch of magic, I definitely recommend House of Rougeaux. This is actually available now if you want to get the ebook. I will leave a link down in the description to purchase the ebook, as well as a link down in the description to pre-order the paperback if you're interested. So yeah, I ended up giving House of Rougeaux a 4 out of 5 stars. Really enjoyed it and highly recommend. I have a couple of books here that I won't spend too long talking about. The first one is Nemesis Games by James S.A. Corey. This is book number 5 in the Expanse series, which is an adult sci-fi space opera series that I've been reading and loving. This book I really enjoyed. It was a 4 out of 5 stars. So in this book, what I really liked is that the main crew of the Rocinante are split apart and are all dealing with their own like personal conflict, demons from their past, things that they've been hiding from each other, things like that. But also they're all dealing with incredibly tense, life-threatening situations individually, and then it all becomes one big thing, like one big problem. I loved how we got to see more of the characters' lives. We got a lot of character work in this particular book, which I really enjoyed. We got some backstory on Naomi. We got some backstory on Amos and Alec. Not so much Holden, because like Holden has nothing to hide. If you've read this, you know. And I loved the way it was set up and the way it was done. This is probably my second favorite book in the entire series so far. So yeah, had a great time with this, 4 out of 5 stars. And then I reread Chain of Gold by Cassandra Clare, which is the first book in the Last Hours series, in anticipation for Chain of Iron, which comes out this month. So super excited to get to that one, and I wanted to make sure that I had everything fresh in my memory. And I'm so glad that I reread this because I forgot about that whole epilogue. I just enjoy these characters so much. They are my children and I would do anything for them. Yeah, I had a great time with this. 5 out of 5 stars. I ended up reading one YA contemporary this month, and that was Felix Ever After by Kason Calendar, a story about Felix Love, who has never been in love but really wants to. He goes to this somewhat prestigious private art high school, and he is also a trans boy. One day someone does something incredibly horrible to him. They end up posting like this gallery in their school of Felix before his transition with his dead name, and so he is obviously devastated by this. But after, he decides that he's gonna get revenge, and he thinks he knows who did this, and so he sets up this like false account online to catfish this boy who he thinks put up the gallery of him. And what ensues is like this really crazy but really cute love triangle that I just thought was so cute. This was so much fun. It was just pure joy and happiness, although it does deal with some heavier topics. But the way it was done, it didn't overshadow just the immense joy that you got while reading this book, and I really enjoyed my time with it. I don't have much else to say. I really liked the romance in here. So there's a love triangle, and part of it is like kind of insta-lovey, like really bad insta-love, but then the other part of it is just like this beautiful sweet romance. So I kind of forgave the insta-love because I enjoyed everything else about the book, and I ended up giving it a 4 out of 5 stars. And then right around the time that I was still in that reading slump but really hoping to get out of it, I decided to pick up 2 novellas because I thought that they were short, and I thought, you know, they would help me get out of my reading slump, and they did. So the first one I picked up was The Deep by Rivers Solomon. This is a short novella, and it follows Yetu, our main character, who is a historian for her people. Her people are the water-dwelling descendants of pregnant African slave women who were thrown overboard during the transatlantic slave trade. Yetu's job as historian is to retain all of those painful memories from their ancestors and their beginnings, and just all that painful history is locked up inside of her. And one time a year she is able to release it to the rest of her people so that they can experience it, but then she has to take it back. However, this time she decides not to take it back. It's so much to carry for one person that she just can't do it anymore. She does not think that she will survive it. And so once she gives the memories to the rest of her people, she runs away. The kind of adventure that she goes on and the people that she meets really help her to bring to perspective this history and what it means and how important it is for us to know our history. And I thought that this was one of the most beautiful books that I have ever read. It made me cry, it made me laugh, it made me happy, it made me contemplate my history and our history as African Americans. And I thought it was just so incredibly well done. I thought the writing was stunning. This was my first book by Rivers Solomon, and I definitely need to read more by them because I adored this. This was a 5 out of 5 stars, probably going to be close to, if not one of my favorite books of 2021. I highly recommend this if you haven't picked it up yet. It is super short, but it packs such a big punch. And I know that I will think about this and I will remember this reading experience for years to come. It was stunning. And then the second novella that I read was Riot Baby by Tochi Onyebuchi, and I had much of the same experience with this one. This follows two siblings. I keep forgetting characters' names, I swear. Ella and Kev. So Ella has what she calls a thing. And basically she has a bunch of different abilities. It's hard to explain, but she has like the ability to look at people and see their future and their past, like their entire history. She also has the ability to fly, and she has a lot of power. Okay, she has a lot of power, and her brother Kev gets incarcerated, and she is deciding whether or not it is right for her to help him to break the system that is so incredibly broken, which is the criminal justice system in America. It is horrible. And because she is so powerful, she has the power to fight back. She has the power to fight back against oppression and injustice and racism, and she's trying to decide whether that's the right thing to do. And I really don't want to say much else about this because I think that it is so powerful. I struggled to figure out what it was that I loved so much about Tochi Onyebuchi's YA series that I read from him, Beast Made of Night, because I didn't love the story, to be honest, but I loved the writing so much, and I found out what it was, and it is his passion. In this particular book, he writes with so much passion and so much anger, like anger that you feel leaping off the page because of all the injustice that is done. And Ella and Kev have gone through so much themselves. It's the kind of anger that wants to just burn everything down and to fight back, but it's also the kind of anger that leaves space for love. And I just thought that this was, again, one of the most beautiful books that I've ever read. Sometimes the prose in here felt like poetry. Just the way he writes with such raw emotion really touched me, really got to me. And this is also set in like this dystopian world, and the dystopian aspects kind of come on gradually and later on in the book for sure. And I thought that the world that Tochi created was so interesting as well. It was stunning, is all I can say. It was stunning. I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars. Honestly, thinking back on it, maybe it's more of a 5. I don't know. Really enjoyed my time with this. I definitely need to read everything by Tochi Onyebuchi, and I highly recommend Riot Baby if you haven't picked it up yet. Okay, next I'm going to talk about The Prey of Gods by Nikki Drayden. I actually buddy read this with Angela from Literature Science Alliance, and we had a great old time reading this book. This is a sci-fi fantasy mix, and it takes place in Port Elizabeth, South Africa, and we're following a lot of different characters. One of them is Muzi, who is experiencing like this coming of age. He's just becoming a man and going through this ceremony to show that to the world. He's kind of in love with his best friend, but hasn't really told him. And we're also following Namvula, who is this little girl who discovers that she has some immense power. And then we're following Sydney, who is a vengeful demigoddess out to take over the world, basically. And then we're also following a pop star and a councilman, and all of them kind of come together amongst artificial intelligence revolution as well as a near apocalypse brought on by demigods. There's so much going on in here. It is chaotic, but like in the best way. I absolutely adored the writing in here because I loved Nikki Drayden's humor for one. I loved how fast-paced and how easy it was to fall into. I just think that this is so amazing, and I hope that I didn't give too much away with my synopsis, but I definitely think that this is a book that you like, don't read the synopsis, just go into it and just experience it, because that's what we did, both me and Angela, and we ended up loving it. I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars. I definitely want to pick up more by Nikki Drayden in the future. It was a little weird, a little out there, but so good. And then finally, the last thing that I read in February was The Hope of Elantris by Brandon Sanderson, that comes after Elantris. So I read Elantris last month, so I read The Hope of Elantris this month. It's only like 25 pages, and I actually listened to the dramatized audio adaptation, which I highly recommend. If you're able to find that, I picked mine up on Hoopla from my library. It is so much fun. There are sound effects, there's music, you can hear like if someone's fighting, you can hear the sword play. And I was worried because I always thought that like those dramatized adaptations were just dialogue and sound effects, but it's actually the entire narration of the story, as well as the dialogue and sound effects. And it is a full cast, so every single character has their own voice actor. I thought it was so much fun. Like, the experience of listening to it like that was so incredible. So if you can find the dramatized adaptation, I definitely recommend that. But I am doing a like reread or read through of the Cosmere this year, this time reading everything in order. So that was the next one I had to read, so I read it, and like I said, it's very short. I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars. I really love the world of Elantris in general, and this takes, I can't say anything about it because it takes place during a specific point in the book that's like very spoilery, but I loved it. So 4 out of 5 stars, and that was the final thing that I read in February. So that is going to be it for my February wrap up. I hope you enjoyed. Do let me know down in the comments if you've read any of the books that I talked about today. Let me know if you have any thoughts, any opinions. You know, I love hearing from you down in the comments. But that is going to be it from me today. So if you like this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, hit subscribe, and I will see you in my next one. Bye guys.